As with every brilliant idea, the first iteration is always flawed in one way or the other. In the case of the mousy maze, the rodent riddle, the labyrinth of loot, its major weakness quickly became obvious to me as I reviewed the previous night's footage in the morning. The exception was movement around the Thanos. The mice checked it out thoroughly but were of course totally unharmed. Also, some movement on top of and around the maze was captured. But zero activity filmed inside of the labyrinth. The camera had triggered over 30 times during the night. But almost every clip was very short and showed no movement at all. What had happened? Was there something wrong with the camera? Then suddenly I noticed in one clip that the piece of chocolate had moved. The palatable piece de resistance of the tasty treasure was no longer in the tasty treasure chamber but lay instead a couple of decimeters down the path in the maze. Since I do not believe in ghosts, human or animal, I understood that the mouse had been in there and stealthily moved it towards the entrance without setting off the camera. But how? Yes, they do have ninja-like climbing skills, but do they also possess the ninja ability to move undetected and disappear like that? I think not. No, the answer to this conundrum came to me as clear as a Christmas tree light. Once again we have to turn to physics. The motion sensor in the camera uses infrared light to detect differences in temperature between the moving object and its surroundings. By enclosing the mousy maze in an acrylic sheet, I had effectively rendered the motion sensor useless. It works as an isolating layer that prevents the motion sensor to register the tiny rodent. Much like how soldiers escape drones by hiding under thermal blankets. So obvious, and yet so annoying. Why didn't I think of that beforehand? But that is how it is, the first iteration always suck. I went out to the shed and brought back the maze. Upon closer inspection I found that the mice had moved the chocolate and one piece of cheese along the path but not managed to get them all the way out. Now, how should I solve the problem? I could drill multiple holes in the acrylic sheet along all the different paths and hope that it would be enough for the motion sensor to detect the small heat signature from the mouse. But I doubt it would work. I don't think the sensor is sensitive enough, and I think that the acrylic would still be too isolating unless I drilled hundreds of holes and turned it into a mesh of sorts. A mesh? Yes, of course. I need a mesh of some kind. Luckily I have just that in the garage from my wall plastering project this summer. The holes in this steel mesh measures 20 by 20 millimeters. Mice can squeeze through some pretty tiny gaps, so I will probably have to lay it in 2 overlapping layers for it to work. While at it, I decided to also change the white tape to black tape for better contrast, and to move around some of the walls in the maze since the mice might have learned its layout by now. I cut the steel mesh to size and then mounted it in 2 overlapping layers using a staple gun. I don't believe a mouse can squeeze through that. Let's just hope that the gaps are big enough for the motion sensor to pick up the movement of the mouse. Hopefully the motion sensor is not affected by this Faraday cage-like setup. I decided to move the Thanos and place it as a deadly doorway, an evil entrance, to the maze. By now I am quite confident in the Thanos' total inability to catch mice, so it is really just there to look scary and add a bit of suspense. To further improve the camera's chances of picking up movement in the maze, I decided to move the camera closer. Hopefully this will work. All I can do now is once again wait and see what happens in the shed under the darkness of the December night.